Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm not Kyle.
You're what we like to call the anti-Kyle. You're like when Zeus plucked me from his what was it, rib or Adam's rib, or I don't remember. Zeus plucked me from Adam's rib, and then his other rib was Jules. And I'm mixing some metaphors up here.
No, I love that though. Whenever we start out, I love to say, and I'm not whoever. Mm-hmm. That's like my little podcasting bit.
Right.
But then you say something like, "You're the anti-Kyle," and I think, how can I embody the opposite of Kyle for the rest of this?
Oh, true. Yeah. Go. I mean, if you wanna riff a little bit and decide like what the anti-Kyle's
I could go
into,
for like some really low hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
But I don't know if I want to. But like
hey.
my first instinct is always to just like dig right into the trash whenever there's a bit to be had.
Well, that's where the best morsels and scraps are.
So I guess if I'm going to be the anti-Kyle, I could be like sexy and cool.
Well, yeah. No, that's wig. That absolutely. Yeah, I could be. Well, people like me for how ugly and uncool I am on this show.
I didn't mean it.
No, I'm just kidding.
I feel too powerful and confident because I'm sitting in the recording, like I'm sitting in Nile's chair right now.
But you're doing things, you're saying stuff that I don't think Nile would say.
No, but it's just the power that comes with, like, I'm at the controls.
No, and I'm just saying, it's a breath of fresh air to tell me that I'm ugly. that I'm fucking...
Well, don't you and Nile usually call each other, like, straight up idiots? This was a thing I was just talking about. I was trying to remember the time one of you was describing the format of this podcast, and you were like, yeah, one plays the idiot, and the other one explains it to the idiot. That is true.
The idiot, the fool, the dumbass. Yeah. It's all the above.
Well, I'm the idiot though this time.
That's true. You get to be the
you can
the
take
fool.
me down a couple rungs.
Absolutely.
I'm the idiot. Make me wear a dunce cap for the rest of the episode.
Absolutely.
Let me
go
get it.
Yeah. Go, that dunce cap noises. There you go. Absolutely. I can't wait to edit this. See, now I know how Nile feels.
Cap noise.
So
I was fully expecting you when we were setting up to record actually to do a lot of really awful mouth noises when I had to have the headphones on.
No.
But that's just for Nile.
Yeah, that's when Nile's the one who's got it because I'm the one editing it. I'm gonna play real nice and clean this episode.
Yeah.
Except for the dunce cap noises. So
but that just proves then that you know better. You know how to behave well, and you just don't.
Absolutely. I'm like a third grader on this show. Like, absolutely. So, little bit of a thing here. Nile had to go do some family stuff this week. He could not make it this week. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break from the Alex Jones saga that I'm in the middle of with Nile. And we brought Jules on the show to fill in.
I'm like the cool substitute teacher.
Exactly.
And so I'm just going to put on...
And I'm a third grader.
I'm the cool substitute history teacher, and I'm just going to put on Glory for the next couple days. Yeah. And we're just going to watch that. And then I'm going to forget that there's like actually some like... Isn't Glory the one? I'm trying to remember. Glory that's a true story from my middle school history. It's like the... what's his name? Ferris Bueller's in it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Civil War movie.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. For us, it was October Sky.
Oh, I've heard of that one, but no.
I was like 15, 16 when I was forced to watch that, and I thought it was dog shit. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's something about rockets or whatever. Who gives a shit? So yeah, you're kind of the substitute teacher and I'm the third grader, and we're gonna just kind of play in this space a bit.
Let's just watch Armageddon and pretend that that's real science.
Ooh. Jules, can I tell you about this?
Yeah.
Is it I thought
that was a frightening pause.
I thought I was gonna have a little bit to launch into.
Yeah.
My brain kind of stalled, and then I was like, no, there's nothing there, so I'm gonna just launch right into it. If you're down.
I'm ready.
Cool. All right. So I just want to start this off by saying a listener I think recommended this episode to us forever ago. and I am so sorry I don't remember who you are. But if you're out there and you want to like shoot us an email or Twitter message, go for it, because we forgot to credit you. I apologize, but thank you nonetheless for recommending this episode. So, our story begins in the autumn of 1931 on the Isle of Man in the farmstead on a countryside hilltop known as Dorlish Cashin or Cashin's Gap. So, there lived Jim and Margaret Irving with their 12-year-old daughter, Voira. Voira, I think is how you pronounce that.
Okay.
It's spelled like Voirrey, so it looks like Voiry.
Yeah, I would probably say like Voira or Voira.
It's Manx, which is like the local people's language, I think. So, but Voira, I believe. Now, this was a pretty isolated place. Their closest neighbors were over a mile away, and prior to managing the farm, Jim Irving was a traveling salesman. The farm life was Mr. Irving's retirement plan, but unfortunately, things didn't really go as he'd hoped. The farm was a pretty dismal failure. They just like didn't have a good yield or something. The family.
Yeah, I feel like farm as retirement that's a rough pitch in a way. Like,
yeah,
some people like I feel like that's actually a really common thing now with like bougie like millionaires are like, I'm gonna retire and have an animal sanctuary,
right?
And I'm like, yeah, you get to retire because you own the animal sanctuary and everyone else is gonna do all the actual work. But the idea of like a guy being like, I'm gonna hang up my hat as a traveling salesman,
I saved up $500
and I'm gonna retire on my farm. A farm is so much work.
It is a ton of work, and it is like just I think the three of them. And so I mean like, okay, you'd have to be like a person, you like to go from traveling salesman to like just retired farmer, and just like let that be your life. You'd have to get to Indiana at the like very like right at the time like before corn was like the thing, you know. So you'd have to be there like for the onset of the corn situation in Indiana. We have a lot of corn here for people who don't know. That's like huge here.
The corn situation.
The corn situation, the corn event. I don't know what they call it, but I'm sure they have a term similar to the corn situation.
The corn situation is what they are going to call the Broadway adaptation of Corn's anthology, Corn's discology, whatever you call that. It's like a Mamma Mia style musical. I don't know any Corn songs. I can't name a single Corn song to make a joke off of this, though.
You like when they hit the clean vocal version musical style of Freak on a Leash.
Sure, Freak on a Leash.
It's gonna be something else, let me tell you. But yeah, this guy's like, oh, I'm gonna retire on a farm, and then they couldn't make ends meet with how the farm was doing. So as a result, this is ridiculous. Like, the farmstead had no electricity and thus no phone or radio. And again, they're like over a mile from like civilization.
Okay.
So they're just, all this is just adding to the isolation.
I feel like retirement also kind of meant a different thing in an older time, where it was more like, I'm gonna be my own boss kind of thing.
Right.
Could also be retiring. Like, that you didn't actually think you were gonna stop working. But it was like, now, late stage capitalism.
Retirement's based, retirement's at this time is like New Game Plus, really.
Yeah.
Of working.
So much of the time when I'm like talking about anything and I start to think about like society and how it works and I start to get into it, I just like trail off and say like, late stage capitalism, and I just say it and shrug, and everyone in my life is like, yeah, we're in it, aren't we?
We're all up in that shit right now. And you know, that's what's really pathetic about this guy's situation. You know, because like he's like, he doesn't even know the kind of shit we have to put up with now. Like, I can't imagine being a farmer. I don't know what it's like to be a farmer, I'm not gonna lie, but it's just kind of sad when you look at it. So I was kind of looking at this guy's thing going like, I imagine this isolation would be very dull.
Yeah.
Like they don't have board games more interesting than Monopoly at the time, you know? Like, I don't know what they were playing back then, but they didn't have
when are we actually
anything.
Talking? You said, but now I'm
1931.
1931.
So,
so there's a lot of whittling.
Yes, whittling
hoop
and
stick.
Hoop and stick, whistling and walking around. Yeah, like there's just not much going on. Now,
I love a good whistle.
Oh,
I actually can't whistle.
I almost did it, but I realized that it was going to be a fun edit.
You
but
just
I can
said
whistle.
you were going to be nice to yourself
I
in the edit.
wet my lips and just kind of. Yeah, I can kind of whistle.
I can't whistle. Like I can, if I concentrate really hard, make like a sound, but I can't like whistle a tune like some people can. Like
my mom and dad can both do that crazy whistle where they put their fingers in their mouth and just like.
How do you do that? What do the fingers do? I've never understood.
I've tried it. I can't do it. But when I can just like do one of those, that'll entertain me for hours.
And when people do like bird calls and stuff, and they like hold their hands together and blow into their hands.
I don't know how they do that either. I don't know.
It's like magic to me.
It is really crazy. So I'm assuming that's what's going on.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of that. They got really good at bird calls.
Exactly. So they're just out there, just like making bird calls, looking around, going, not really a lot of birds in the area, and they go on with their whistling and stuff. So, yeah, so it's a blessing and a curse for the family when some extremely strange occurrences begin happening in their quarters.
Do you mean to tell me that it gets weird at some point in this story?
Weird in this story. That's the thing about this. On a September evening, while the family was presumably bored out of their minds, no PlayStation or Nintendo in sight.
No Super Smash Bros.
No Super Smash Bros. No Fortnite. A bizarre blowing, spitting, and growling sound started emanating from behind some wood paneling in the farmhouse walls.
In the walls? I was like, the whole time you were saying like isolated out on the farmland and stuff, I was like, sure, like in the woods and stuff happens.
In the walls.
That's no.
It's in the walls, and I think that there's not like a ton of forest around them. It's like a hilltop in this sort of
okay.
Yeah, so there's not like a lot of forest. There's just something in the walls.
So when you hear growling in the walls, you're fucked.
I also love that it's blowing, spitting, and growling because you gotta imagine what that sounds like. It's gotta be like a.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what the fuck? There's just something really weird going on.
Although I guess if they're sitting around practicing their bird calls and stuff, like before you get really good at it, there is probably a lot of blowing and spitting.
Maybe they heard that and they're like,
they didn't notice it at first.
New technique.
They thought Voira was like off in her room practicing her bird calls.
That is so fascinating that you should say that. I want you to take what you just said, put it in your pocket very loosely, so that it is easily accessible.
All right, I've got it.
Because you're going to need that later on.
Okay.
This noise would end up coming and going over a period of multiple days. Assuming it was some sort of unwanted pest, Mr. Irving set out traps and poison, but neither of these things managed to stop the weird noises. In a somewhat desperate attempt, one time, Mr. Irving decided to respond to the noises himself. When he heard the telltale sounds, he put his face near the crack in the wall he heard it coming from and growled like a dog at it. Whatever it was, much to his shock, growled back. In a mimicking sort of way. This seemed to kick off phase 2 of the mysterious source of the noises. Mr. Irving would go around the house making bird calls and other animal noises, and the mysterious source of the noise would mimic those sounds back to him. Phase 3 begins.
No, thank you. This is horrifying to me.
I promise it gets far less horrifying.
That's good. I'm glad, but like
it is very freaky to think about.
Just whenever I picture, I am such a like when I have to be like home alone for any extended period of time, I'm so jumpy and weird, and especially living in an apartment building, every noise like sets me off and makes me like paranoid.
Completely understand.
So like hissing and growling in my walls, that's a no-go for me.
It would suck.
I definitely wouldn't growl at it. I'll tell you that.
No, you call the police.
Yes, I would definitely. I would burn my farmhouse down and just move.
It would be over. Yeah, for sure. Well, phase 3 begins at this point. And I decided to call them phases.
I'm into it.
Mr. Irving would soon merely have to name an animal, and the sound of that animal would be repeated back.
Okay, so it's an intelligent creature.
It seems to be that way. Beyond these uncanny imitations of wildlife, it was also said that it would make another odd noise. This one's pretty horrible, so I'm sorry. This is nightmare stuff. One that sounded like a gurgling baby attempting to say its first words. I promise we're almost past the horrifying stuff, because once it's revealed what this is, you'll be like, "Oh, nice."
We're having a good time talking about the horrible concepts, though, so it's all right.
Now phase 4 begins. This thing began to speak full, articulate, human-like sentences to the Irving family. This began when Voira decided to ask the thing to repeat some nursery rhymes. The voice would oblige, speaking nursery rhymes in a squeaky voice. These nursery rhyme prompts would only serve to embolden the voice because then it began to speak conversationally to the family.
My brain is like, I trust you. You're my friend Kyle, and you have told me that this is not horrifying. And my brain is like desperately trying to find purchase on something, like some explanation for this that isn't terrible. But that's, why would you ever? I'm gonna have it recite nursery rhymes, and then oh my god, and it talks to me, this thing in my walls, before I know what it is. No.
Jules. The voice introduced itself as Jeff, an extra clever mongoose.
He calls himself Jeff.
He calls himself Jeff. G-E-F, Jeff.
Okay.
Jeff claimed to have been born in Delhi, India in 1852. Interestingly, a neighbor of the farmstead had in fact imported mongoose to the area 2 decades earlier as a means of controlling an overactive local rabbit population.
And then they taught the mongoose how to read.
And then they taught him all kinds of animal calls and things like that, and how to speak intelligently.
In like, okay, this is like a common trope in sci-fi. Like, little kid like finds a creature and hides it from his parents. Mm-hmm. That's like a thing. We're talking your ETs.
E.T.
Your Stranger Things is a more modern iteration. That would never be me. If I saw E.T., fuck that.
Oh, no.
There's no way.
As a kid...
I'm not protecting E.T. I'm not that kid.
It's throwing him to the wolves.
Fuck E.T.
Fuck E.T. Look, I think I've mentioned on this show before, I was terrified of E.T. as a kid. I'm an adult now. I can handle it. But if I saw that in real life, I'm going to kick it. I'm going to
There's
attack
no
it.
way. Like, as a child, my instinct, I would just run. Like, I would just be like, you're terrified. On your own, E.T.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, but I'm not the one who is supposed to find you.
We are on the exact same page here.
But that's how I kind of feel that way about Jeff the Mongoose.
Oh, really?
I think I would be like, sure.
But he's like a cute little guy.
How cute are mongooses, really? This is a mongoose? What's a mongoose look like? I'm picturing, aren't mongooses like, they're like big ferrets?
They're like this. Well, this
Am I dumb?
No. I think they might be slightly larger, or about the same size as a ferret.
Okay, I thought they were bigger.
And I think I have a description.
I like ferrets. I'm on record.
They're kind of like
ferrets.
I think. This guy. I actually have a description of him later.
Okay.
But I don't think he's like crazy big or intimidating or anything.
Just a mongoose introduces himself to me as Jeff, and I'm like, I don't know if I can handle that.
Well, just think about the sequence of events here. It's like, hey, I'm Jeff.
Yeah,
like that's what's happening here. Like,
lamb,
yeah.
But it's high and squeaky, actually. You said so. I just don't.
It's pretty bad still. I'll admit.
No, but I do love it. I do love that his name is Jeff.
His name is Jeff.
Me as an adult, I love Jeff.
We love Jeff. We're gonna get to know Jeff.
Okay.
So, it wasn't long before Jeff started having full conversations with the Irving family, and for some reason he was especially chummy with Voira and Mr. Irving, but less friendly to Mrs. Irving, and I never got like a good idea as to why. I have a theory, but I don't really know. Jeff ended up nesting in a boxed partition in Voira's room, which the family came to call Jeff's sanctum. According to the Irving family,
these people are demented. This guy never should have retired. He should have stayed a traveling salesman.
Yeah, now they have a named speaking mongoose performing Doctor Strange spells in their attic.
They might have been able to cling to some semblance of their sanity if he had just stayed a traveling salesman and they'd stayed in the big city.
Nope, they're getting Studio Ghibli right now.
Yep, straight up.
So,
Jeff's sanctum.
Jeff's sanctum. Yep. That's where he goes.
And where do they live? What gap? Canisius Gap or something?
Gashin's Cap. It's I don't know. You heard me say it at the start. If you want to know the name of that, rewind to the very start.
I'm just saying, this is all very whimsical. This is like very like I wouldn't even say Ghibli. I'd say like Roald Dahl-esque.
Yeah. It's like they're like in this like European like hilltop farmhouse with like a talking magical mongoose named Jeff, like for sure.
We're in like James and the Giant Peach territory.
Yeah, they're gonna like fucking drink some fizzy lifting drinks with this guy. So according to the Irving family, Jim and Margaret only ever got brief glimpses of Jeff. It was Voira who had maintained close contact with the mysterious mongoose, and only Voira. Her close relationship to the critter afforded her the only true eyewitness description of Jeff. True. He was about the size of a small rat. He had yellowish fur, a flat snout like a hedgehog, and a long bushy tail. So he's just like a little guy.
He's just a little guy.
Yeah.
He's just a sweet little guy.
Yeah, and he's always going to be a sweet little guy.
And his name is Jeff. But the parents are 100% bought in on Jeff. They never really see him, but they treat Jeff like he's...
I don't want to jump too far ahead in this.
That's fair.
But the Irving family never backs down from their story. Ever.
I think it's kind of my signature whenever I get on It Gets Weird to get like 100 miles ahead of whoever is telling the
Nile
story.
does it. We do it on episodes all the time. Like, don't worry about it.
There are questions.
Questions
come up.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Oh, no. I wouldn't have you on if you weren't inquisitive. If I said this to you and you were just like, yeah, okay.
Sure, I accept everything.
Right. Everything makes sense so far. Then it would not be a very entertaining podcast.
No, and I would be a pretty sick person.
Yeah, you would be sick. Just honestly deranged. That's a sort of deranged person's thing to do. Eventually Jeff became a part of the Irving family. Essentially, like he's just
we're talking Stuart Little.
This is Stuart Little shit.
I'm gonna
he's
keep
riding
just
around
making my pulls.
And like I said, he just stays this cute, adorable little guy the whole time. He never deviates. It's amazing.
That was the most unsettling wink anyone has ever winked at me in my life. I'm gonna bring the listeners in on this journey. They all have to sit and pretend right now that Kyle just winked at you.
I did
in
just
an extremely uncomfortable.
Pretend
manner.
I winked at you right now, and it was not a good wink. It was a wink that made you just not want to look me in the eyes.
It was
just not good.
It was a sad wink.
It's said. So this is one of my other favorite parts of the story. It's said that Jeff would travel around the island by hitching rides on the backs of cars and buses during the day. Then in the evening, he would come home and gossip with the family about the things he witnessed in his travels.
Oh, that wily Jeff, always out on his little adventures.
And like, here's the thing too, Voira is the only one who ever really sees him. Mm-hmm. As far as I can tell, the way he communicates with the family is he just speaks to them through the walls of the house as he kind of travels because he doesn't come out much. He like travels through these hollow walls that they have and these like rafters at the top of the house. So they just hear him. So it's just like, yeah, so John was hitting on the corner store lady today, and they're just like, oh, well, tell me more, Jeff, from the wall. I want to hear more about John and the corner store lady. Oh, very interesting.
How much does Voira get out at this point? Because like, I'm not trying to guess or hang an explanation on it necessarily, but so much of it sounds like a child's imagination getting ahead of her. She's isolated. All she has is bird calls to pass the time, and so she starts to make up stories about what Jeff did that day.
I don't have exact details on what that's like I just know that she's there living with her parents, and
because I'm just picturing like because like adding to it that like he goes out on the town and shit.
Right.
I feel like that would get much more complicated for a child to keep up with.
Are you saying that these stories about this mongoose sound like the sort of whimsical tales a child might tell themselves?
I think that might be exactly what I'm saying.
No, I mean, I don't think you're right, but that's I guess that's anything's possible, really. So Jeff was known for occasionally reading out items from local newspapers to the family. Oh man, I forgot how many tidbits of this are great. When he was tired of talking with them, he would proclaim "vanished," and he would promptly disappear.
Okay, I love Jeff.
Jeff's great.
Jeff is living the dream. You know what I mean? Like, he just gets left to his own devices. He can just chill in the walls. I've always wanted to just live in the walls.
Yes.
Not only come out when I feel like it, and when I'm done talking to someone, just yell
vanished, and you're gone. Exactly. He's got the perfect life. He's
absolutely living the dream.
You don't even. He gets snacks from the family. Like we'll get into details on that, but they just like give him stuff. So
this is. I have a tangent. Do you mind if I tell you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is from when I was like a teenager. We used to have so a couple things converged. That it started as an inside joke that we said our house was haunted when like little things would happen that you couldn't quite explain. We would just be like, oh, the ghost did it. And it was a joke. Nobody actually thought that the house was haunted. And then we read a news story about, this is literally a detail from the news story, but like a tiny Chinese woman was living in some people's walls. And they like she lived there for years and she only came out when they weren't home and stuff. And they didn't know that she was living in the walls. So we started saying that there was a tiny Chinese woman living in our walls and that she was coming out when we weren't there and moving stuff around. And that's kind of like, it was like very regularly referenced.
Right.
And like,
oh, the Chinese woman.
I think we named her even. I think she had a name. Like I don't remember what her name was, but like Stephanie would come out and
get potato chips
and move stuff around.
Yeah.
I'm picturing that like being like every couple days the family's like, oh, Jeff must have come home late last night.
Jeff's up to his old tricks again. He moved my newspaper to another countertop in the house.
You know how much he loves reading the news.
We do know that is true. That is canonical. Here's something that Jim Irving himself wrote about Jeff. Quote, it announces its presence by calling either myself or my wife by our Christian names. Its hearing powers are phenomenal. It is no use whispering. It detects the whisper 15 to 20 feet away, tells you that you are whispering, and repeats exactly what one has said. So if you whisper, like let's say I come up to you and I'm like, Jules, do you like Jeff? He'll come out of the walls and he'll be like, I know that you said Jules didn't like Jeff.
I know you were talking shit.
I know you're talking about me. No, Jeff, we weren't talking shit. You explicitly repeated it back to us. You know that we were saying that we like you. And then Jeff's like, well, you didn't really like finish the thought. So Jules didn't get a chance to tell you.
But Jeff, you interrupted us before we had the chance.
Right, but you should have said something. You should have been quicker to the...
But Jeff... Just like whispering, trying to reason with this little mouse that lives in your wall. Like, I swear, man.
Come on, Jeff. Jeff would sometimes bring home dead rabbits to the family as a gift, and Margaret would cook them for meals. Jeff would proudly tell the family that he strangled the rabbits with his own mongoose paws. He strangled them, by the way. Like, instead of, like, I imagine a mongoose would probably tear something up with its, like,
don't
teeth?
Mongoose have, like, they've got, like, sharp teeth,
but this guy took his paws and wrapped his paws around a rabbit's neck and strangled
I'm picturing like I'm on a big pop culture reference kick on this one, I guess, but you've seen the movie Fantastic Mr. Fox, the Wes Anderson one?
I actually haven't.
Oh, damn. Okay.
One day.
Are you familiar with the book at all?
No.
Okay. There's a rat in it. And Willem Dafoe plays him in the Wes Anderson, but he's like a very cool rat.
Of course.
But he's kind of like a criminal rat. Great.
So this is Jeff.
Great character, but I'm picturing, yes.
Okay, I like that.
He's like a cool rat who like literally smokes a cigarette and is wearing like a striped shirt and is like,
I gotta watch
hey,
that
Daddy-o.
someday.
Yeah. I love that movie.
I just like, I like if Jeff is a talking mongoose living in their walls, who's to say the animals around there aren't like,
we might have a whole
sentient.
Yeah, a whole like a habitat.
Yeah. I'm lucky the talking rabbit.
But I am like this. Jeff is now Willem Dafoe.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm casting him.
Willem Dafoe, if he's doing a Europe. I think that they're Gaelic, so like sort of a.
Willem Dafoe could do that.
Yeah, Willem Dafoe can do that.
100%.
So. When he would bring them food, the family would return the favor by feeding him biscuits, sweets, and chocolate. Sometimes, if Jeff was lucky, they would even give him a meal of bacon and sausage. So he's living large.
I think in Fantastic Mr. Fox, he likes apple cider.
Okay, well that can canonical. I bet if they had apple cider to give Jeff, he'd be really into that shit. They probably
would have given it to him. Yeah.
They would leave the food out on crossbeams near the ceiling, and Jeff would fetch the food when nobody was looking. Jeff didn't just talk, it turns out. He also loved to sing.
It's a musical.
It said his favorite song was Carolina Moon, a 1928 Gene Austen performed jazzy vocal pop hit.
Oh my god.
Jeff
is so fucking cool.
Jeff is very cool. And
Jeff
he never
definitely
stops.
fucks.
Absolutely. Jeff, in the Mongoose world, they would say Jeff fucks in a big way. Jeff would sing along to this crooner as it played on a gramophone, which kind of confused me because I remember that they didn't have electricity. So I don't know at what point.
Don't they have wind-up ones?
Oh, you know
back
what?
in the
Maybe
day?
they do.
Where you had to turn a big crank.
Oh, so they're cranking this gramophone.
They're cranking it out.
And Jeff's just going nuts. I love that.
Yeah, he would have to get a human to do it for him, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
He's so
What's he
tiny.
gonna? Well, if the paws can strangle a rabbit,
That's true.
Maybe.
He must be pretty powerful.
he might be able to crank a gramophone. Or crank a Grammy, as they call it back then.
Just cranking Grammys.
Another story describes him bouncing a rubber ball in time to the song instead of singing. So he'd be like dunk, 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 and like to the beat, I guess.
Yeah.
He could also sing the Manx national anthem, which of course Manx is the language of the Manx Celtic people, Celtic people native to the Isle of Man. He also knew a handful of hymns from the Bible and a few tidbits from a Spanish folk song.
That's because he's a good God-fearing mongoose.
That's true. That is also true. I love that he's a God-fearing mongoose. Like that's.
Or maybe he was doing it ironically. Maybe
he could be ironic. He could be a hipster.
Doing
yeah.
it to be funny.
Well, you know what? I think that's closer.
Because he's a murderer.
That's true. He's a murderer, and this next bit I think is going to contradict the God-fearing thing because it says, quote, on one occasion he rather offended Voira's mother by singing a lewd parody of Home on the Range he had picked up from some bus drivers.
This is definitely this is a cool kid, like leather jacket wearing mongoose.
I just want to know what a lewd version of Home on the Range is.
Yeah, I guess. I'm going to just do movie reference after movie reference. I literally just yesterday watched Victor Victoria, which is a musical from the 80s, wherein Julie Andrews is a down-on-her-luck singer, and she decides to pretend to be a drag queen to make money. Okay. So she is a woman, and she is pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman. And it's a really good musical. It sounds like that might age really poorly. It doesn't. It's like great. But literally one of the bits in it is she has like an older gay friend who is kind of like he's like helping her do this, and they sing Home on the Range, and the running gag is that he keeps saying where the deer and the antelope are gay. That's like the joke of that, like that they keep doing that.
Yeah, maybe that's Jeff's bit too.
It's like the only tweak that they make, because he's played by Robert Preston, who is like one of my favorite musical actors of all time, but he's just like this really old like queen, like way like flamboyantly gay, and so like he just keeps referencing that he is gay, so like anywhere he can fit in, like, by the way, I'm gay. So maybe that was Jeff's thing too.
Maybe we don't, I mean, it doesn't explicitly say it in the story, but oh no, I'm sorry, there is a line here where Jeff says, by the way, I'm gay.
I'm out and I'm proud.
But to this lewd parody of Home on the Range where he says the deer and the antelope are gay,
and Mrs. Irving fucking hated
Mrs.
that.
Irving says, you know, Jeff, you are no animal. And Jeff says, of course I am not. I am the Holy Ghost.
This is an atheist mongoose who is fucking with this church-going lady. And that's like, I mean, that makes sense why they wouldn't get along.
This is such an insanely difficult task for a God-fearing person to try and confront a talking mongoose who is also an atheist.
That has to rock your whole world.
First of all, a talking mongoose, God is real, God is good. He doesn't believe in God, though. That's concerning. We're going to have to convert this guy.
He hates God. Like
he actively spits in the face of God. I mean, his existence spits in the face of God. So
it's very true.
Maybe it all checks out at the end of the day.
Mrs. Irving tries to baptize him, puts him in a little baptismal gown.
They've got him like they're baptizing him in like a
I'm
teacup.
holding up my fingers like I'm pretending to hold up a little dress.
Yeah, you take him by the scruff of the neck and you just like dip him in a little teapot. And that's one baptized
Jeff.
Jeff
Would hate that.
Jeff has become Christian.
Jeff would not enjoy that.
Jeff would, but then Jeff later on becomes Catholic.
Have you seen Ed Wood?
I have not.
I'm gonna keep referencing shit you haven't seen.
I gotta watch more movies. Is the lesson I'm learning.
There's a part in Ed Wood where they're trying to get the funding for a movie, and they get these religious people to fund it, but they'll only fund it if everybody gets baptized.
Oh God.
So Ed Wood and all of his weirdo friends get baptized, and Bill Murray is really good in that movie. I was just picturing him getting baptized. Just picture, if you've seen Ed Wood, picture that, but it's a little tiny mongoose named Jeff.
Well, Jeff, we'll give you some sweets and chocolate, but you gotta be baptized.
You must get baptized first, and you have to mean it.
Now, Jules.
I'm just picturing telling someone, you have to get baptized and you have to mean it. You have
to get baptized and you have to like it.
You have to like it. You have to promise you're going to like it and that you're not going to go back on it and start sinning again.
Yeah, you start sinning again, we're going to have to baptize you all over, and that's going to be really just tedious, okay? So just really enjoy that baptism. How many times can you get
baptized? Like, how are the Christians?
You know who you're talking to, right? Like, I don't
I know,
fucking
but
know.
We're both completely
Nile would have a perfect answer.
Nile
would know exactly, but I got nothing for you.
Okay.
Maybe it's kind of like in the Jewish faith where when you're trying to convert, you have to be denied 3 times, so you can be baptized 3 times. It was like a holy...
It's like 3 strikes and you're out.
3 strikes and you're... That's what I was going to say. Now, Jeff wasn't all fun and songs, unfortunately.
Well, he was also murder, as we established.
That's true.
But I'm assuming there's another dark twist.
The dark side to this mongoose was that he was prone to random fits of rage. One day, when Mr. Irving was apparently taking too long to retrieve the Morning Post, Jeff freaked out and yelled, as much of a yell as a mongoose could muster, "Read it out, you fat-headed gnome!" Voira was also afraid of Jeff when he first manifested. One night, she fled to her parents' room in fear of Jeff's inhuman noises, which just pissed off Jeff even more. He proclaimed, "I'll follow you wherever you put her." The family attempted to barricade the bedroom door, but this also backfired. Quote, "Soon we saw the top of the door bulging in as though some terrific force were thrusting against it, but the door held. Then Jeff's queer high voice said, 'I'm coming in.' A few seconds later, a heavy pot of ointment kept in the room crashed against the bedstead."
I feel like when you say something like barricaded, I was assuming you were going to say like he squeezed through because he's a little tiny guy.
He knocked it down.
That's fucking terrifying.
So one of the theories of Jeff, if you are a believer... One of the theories of Jeff, if you are a believer, is that he is a poltergeist.
Ah.
So there's a couple other
I thought you were just going to straight up say like he can change size.
He can become huge.
Yeah.
He's basically like Totoro.
Yeah.
We're gonna stick with the Ghibli thing.
I pictured Dinsdale from Monty Python's Flying Circus. Have you ever seen that episode with the giant hedgehog? That is like it's from a Terry Gilliam. It's from a Terry Gilliam animated part of the show, but like there's a giant, I think it's a hedgehog.
It's been like 15 years since I've watched Flying Circus.
And he's like, he keeps popping into frame like behind giant buildings, and he just goes, "Dinsdale."
Of course he did.
It's a whole bit. It's the running bit throughout the episode as they do on Flying Circus. But
yeah. Okay. God, maybe one day I'll revisit that.
It's a great show.
One time, Jeff spent 30 minutes straight loudly groaning. The noise, of course, spreading throughout the entire house. When he was finished, he simply announced, "I did it for devilment."
He was cranking the Grammy, but
cranking the Grammy.
I mean it as a euphemism this time.
Oh, his little mongoose hog.
His little Grammy.
His little Grammy. So, oh yeah. Can you imagine cranking your Grammy and when you finish, you yell, "I did it for devilment"?
That's gonna be my new.
That's the new signature move.
I hope Nile never listens to this. That way I can spring it on him.
Jeff would also sometimes throw shit at the family.
Oh,
Not poop.
Okay.
One day he threw.
You did say it like a noun.
Like
you said it like.
Sorry, yeah. I realized as soon as I said it that way that's not what I meant. One day he threw a bunch of pebbles at Margaret when she was coming home, so she called out, "Is that you, Jeff?" To which the mongoose replied, "Yes, Maggie, the witch woman, the Zulu woman, the Honolulu woman."
That's fantastic.
So he said that.
And you can pretty much just assume that he did it for devilment.
He did it for devilment. So much of this, so much of this is so like a little kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just, like...
Zulu woman especially.
Witch woman, Zulu woman, Honolulu woman. It's nonsensical.
And it seems like the kind of thing where, like, the first time you heard that, you would want to call somebody it. Doesn't it? Like, Zulu woman, I feel like that's, like, in the olden times, that's, like... I love calling the 30s the olden times, by the
30s, yeah. It's only going to be about 100 years ago here, coming up quicker than you think. So, Jeff's notorious reputation soon spread out from the isolated farmstead and out into the newspapers. Local Manx papers ran stories about the creature, which they called the Dalby Spook. Which is like, as far as I could tell, spook is actually just like a term. It's like a ghost or a spirit or a haunting.
Yeah, it's like calling it, like, I feel like ghoul used to be a much more common word and things like that. That
too, for sure. At one point these articles were up online, but I like checked the links and they were like these Google Drive links and they're not there. So unfortunately, I couldn't find the actual articles, but I did find descriptions of the articles. So we have February 1932 Isle of Man Examiner from the article Dalby Sensation. An early and largely sympathetic article which portrays the Irving family as subject to some rather unkind bullying from the local youth. At this stage, Jeff is known only as the Spook of Dalby and apparently hasn't yet started taking food from the family. He is portrayed as a purely flesh and blood creature, with Jim Irving rubbishing any suggestion of the supernatural.
Because he's a God-fearing man.
Then, also in February 1932, Isle of Man Weekly Times, the article Truth About the Dalby Spook. Another early article portraying Jeff simply as a remarkable animal who, quote, does not discuss the spirit world or give fearful warnings from beyond, but rather repeats God. This is a mongoose that's notable in that he doesn't actually tell you about fearful warnings from beyond. Yeah,
don't worry. This mongoose doesn't discuss the supernatural.
He repeats gossip picked up from local road workers. Rather confusingly, Jeff is referred to by Mrs. Irving here as Jack, which raises the question of when exactly he chose his name.
That's not the kind of thing where it's like, I feel like, was Jack like a general thing that people would call people? Do you know what I mean?
Know. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know. Or it could be that, or it could just be
hit the road, Jack.
Right. Maybe it's just Vara's like tugging on her mom's skirt, just like, no, Mom, it's not Jack, it's Jeff.
Yeah, it's like when you tell your I'm trying to think of two names that sound similar for a funny joke. Oh, man, it would be so cool if I was actually just, like, smart and could make funny jokes.
Well, if you think of something, just jump in and throw the joke out in a little bit whenever it comes to you. So, same month and year, in the Peel City Guardian, quote, the article, The Dorlish Cash in Buggane, which, I don't know what that means. This one says, a rather tongue-in-cheek article portraying Jeff in a more supernatural light than the two articles previously mentioned. Bizarrely, Jeff is described as having, quote, a pig's head with great glowing eyes, and allegedly claims to have no stomach, a claim hard to reconcile with his later fondness for chocolate and sausages.
See, now this sounds like somebody just trying to cash in.
Right.
They don't have the scoop. They just are trying to cash in.
They're just saying stuff.
They heard that there was a spook, and so they described something that they thought would be scary, and didn't do a good job.
How the fuck, where's the communication error here? It's like, yeah, so we got this talking mongoose. A pig's head, you say? Like, what the fuck?
A disembodied pig's head with glowing eyes?
Where'd you get that from? So,
tear out that front page, boys. I've got your headline story. It's a pig's head.
They're all like sadly like tearing apart like images of mongoose and stuff in their papers, and then replacing it with the pig's head. So those were all local, but Jeff's story would spread beyond the Isle of Man over the years. Picked up by the likes of the Fortean Times and the Journal of the American Society of Psychical Research, which might be nonsense to you, but have been brought up on this show multiple times. It's psychical research. That's what it sounds like. It's like this American Institute of like parapsychologists and stuff, and then the Fortean Times, like Fortean phenomena, that's just like supernatural, even UFOs and stuff. So for anybody who might not know. Now, this international fame wouldn't come from nowhere. Jim Irving would persuade the famous psychic researcher Harry Price to investigate the case. Mr. Irving wrote to Price in early 1932 explaining all about Jeff and his story. Price himself was too busy to investigate, so he sent his buddy James MacDonald in his stead. Jeff would instantly come to dislike MacDonald upon his arrival to the Irving household on February 26th, 1932. We would get MacDonald's written account in his report to Price in 1932, and also in a letter about his visit a few years later in 1936. So, in his letter from 1932, he wrote, quote, "On my first day, the Irvings showed me cracks in the farmhouse walls where they said the mongoose spied on visitors. I was there till midnight, but the mongoose was silent. As I was leaving to go, a voice screamed, 'Who is that bloody man?' Irving gripped my arm. 'That's the animal,' he said." Now, here we have the thing that would get published in 1936, a few years later. Quote, "To start with, during February and the beginning of March 1932, I heard a good deal about what was termed at the time as a talking weasel. I ridiculed the whole affair at first. Interest of the people concerned, with amusement in the foreground, I decided to visit Dorlish Cashin with the main object of exposing the whole joke, if there was one. On my arrival at Mr. Irving's farmhouse, a screeching voice said, 'Hello, Arthur,' to which I replied, 'Hello.' I think these are different accounts from different times he visited, now that I'm reading it, because I think the first time not a lot happened, and then he came back, and so we'll get into that.
That's fair.
It then said, 'Call me Jeff. I am an earthbound spirit. Before I saw you, I was going to blow your brains out with a 3D cartridge. But like you now.' So this mongoose was strapped.
This is a whole new twist on Jeff.
Hello, I was going to fucking shoot you in the fucking head.
But you're cool now.
I feel like I just went Joker there for a second.
A little bit.
For Jeff.
Jeff is a lot like Joker from the movie Joker.
It's a lot like the Joker. It's the thing that we've been kind of building up to at this episode. Quietness for a few minutes, then loud knockings on the walls in various parts of the house. Suddenly it said, 'Vanished.' All this happened between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. Vanished, bats.
It is a little bit Jokery to yell vanished. It is, isn't it? And come on, Joker does it for devilment.
I did it for devilment.
You know that the Joker does it for the devilment. For sure she's.
Absolutely. All this happened between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. At about 8 o'clock, Jeff reappeared. 'I'm going to keep you awake all night.'
Okay, Jeff.
Jeff, at first I was going to blow your brains out. Then I decided I wanted to fuck you.
I was going to say, Jeff, that could mean a lot of things.
Yeah. Hey, MacDonald, it's me, Jeff. I'm going to keep you up all night.
Oh, Jeff.
You are not going to keep your promise, I hope. What have I done to deserve it? I asked. 'You are a doubter,' he said. So Jeff doesn't like that he doesn't believe in him.
Yeah, and Jeff doesn't like when you talk shit.
Absolutely.
So that tracks. That's in the canon of Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he should have brought him some sausages.
That would have, I think, smoothed things over in a big way. In the vicinity of 9 o'clock, while dozing in bed, I heard something moving about underneath and thought it a rat or mouse. Peering underneath the bed, I perceived a pair of piercing eyes. They seemed smaller than a cat's eyes look like in the dark. An uncanny voice said, 'Now do you believe? Don't you dare to upset Jimmo.' I don't know what that name is. It says, 'Don't you dare to upset Jimmo with any skeptical remarks,' at the same time making a spitting noise. Jimmo referred... Oh, I guess that this is what Jeff called him? Jimmo... I don't know where Jeff's getting that. It says, Jimmo referred to Mr. Irving... Oh, Jimmo. Oh, it's Jim Irving, Jimmo.
Oh, okay,
I'm so
Jimmo.
dumb.
Yeah, we've been calling him the Mr. and Mrs. Irving
yeah.
this whole time, but yeah.
All that night, I was kept awake at intervals by animal noises. The next morning, I apologized to Mr. Irving for previously disbelieving in the stories of extraordinary manifestations taking place. I positively had all the Irving family at the home at the time.
He should apologize to Jeff, really.
He should you know what? I think he did.
Good.
So,
because otherwise Jeff will shoot him in the fucking face.
Look, hey, Jeff, we're cool, man. We're cool. Put the gun down.
You know Jeff has always got that thing on him.
So, MacDonald finishes his account here saying there was absolutely no fraud of any description. It said that Jeff would take his anger out on MacDonald and his presence when he first showed up, constantly throwing shit at him like pebbles and even a large needle at one point that I think he ricocheted off a kettle.
Oh, okay.
MacDonald claimed to have heard, quote, shrill screams and knockings all over the house, followed by a loud fall in Voira's room where Jeff's sanctum was. When he ran upstairs, he found a chair that had been put over the sanctum, and the chair was knocked over onto the floor.
Now, if this was you,
yeah,
and you went to investigate this, and you were skeptical when you showed up, and these things happened to you, would your first thought be, yeah, it's definitely Jeff, the earthbound spirit mongoose? Or would your first thought be, the Irving family is fucking with me? Do you know what I'm saying?
I would assume the Irving family's fucking with me.
Right? The fact that this guy is like, well, I heard noises. Must be Jeff.
He also saw a pair of eyes under the
There is the eyes. The eyes is harder to explain.
But
most of it seems to be things that happened outside of the room that he was in.
I don't know what, like, again, not to jump ahead, but I don't want to, like, I don't know what McDonald's deal was.
Yeah.
But the other people who investigated got absolutely fuck all.
Yeah.
And he's here claiming, "Oh, I saw eyes. This thing spoke to me."
Well, isn't the whole thing with supernatural people? Don't they say, like, you have to be open to it?
That's true.
To experience.
That's true.
Jeff,
maybe
spirit.
Maybe he was like a fellow. See, the thing is, Price is, as I understood it, was like a guy who was kind of out to debunk stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe McDonald wasn't that.
Yeah.
I don't know. The same evening as the chair being knocked over in the upstairs near the sanctum. Quote, that evening, McDonald overheard Mrs. Irving talking to Jeff upstairs in Voira's room. Won't you come down? I believe in you, he called up hopefully. No, I don't mean to stay long, shrieked Jeff. I don't like you. Undeterred, McDonald crept quietly up the stairs, hoping to catch the mongoose by surprise. To his chagrin, he slipped on a loose tread and tumbled noisily back down. He's coming, the dirty old sleech, yelled Jeff indignantly, and promptly fled.
Dirty old sleech.
It was the last the captain heard from him during his visit.
I like dirty old sleech. That's my favorite Jeffism so
far.
Oh,
you dirty old sleech.
Is that a 1930s insult, or is that a Jeff original?
That might be a Jeff original.
Because I really like that one. I wonder
think
what.
That might be a Jeff
I hope
thing.
Sleech doesn't mean something terrible that I don't know.
It's the slur against the English or something. Like, I don't know.
That I wouldn't mind. I'll say slurs against the English all day.
Despite his concerted effort, McDonald couldn't seem to make contact with Jeff the Mongoose on his 1932 visit. And then, like I said, he returns later in 1935. The one where he's talking to him, that's when all that happens, I think. So,
okay.
And on this visit, he would also acquire evidence in the form of a hair sample. With the sample, Harry Price became interested enough to pay a visit to the Irving family farmstead himself. Jeff, of course, was none too happy about this, supposedly proclaiming he's really flip-flopping because he said, I like Captain McDonald, but not Harry Price, he complained. He's the man who puts the kibosh on the spirits.
Uh-huh. Figure it out, Jeff. Make
Jeff's
up your mind.
all, I like you, I don't like you, I'm gonna blow your brains out.
He's hot and he's cold.
I'm gonna keep you up all night. He's just all over the place. He's like fucking crazy. So, Price made it to the Irvings on July 30th, 1935. BBC journalist Richard Lambert came with him, with Price's explanation being that he, quote, wanted a witness in case Jeff should put in an appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for Price and Lambert, their efforts would be completely in vain. On multiple occasions, Jeff evaded them. So here's
Jeff
stuff.
got wise to you.
Jeff is sick of the shit.
Yeah.
Jeff's
not your dancing monkey, okay?
Jeff offered McDonald one fantastic night.
Yep.
And got turned down,
That's
basically.
right.
And he's not fucking with that anymore. So here's what Price had to say.
Jeff needs to learn to love again.
And it's not going to happen with Price. And
no.
Not even if he brings in this BBC reporter for the three-way. So, Price says, quote, the family was heartbroken at Jeff's continued absence. Mrs. Irving was convinced that the mongoose was still about the house, probably listening to every word we were saying. She addressed a few words to him in the hope that her appeal would touch a sympathetic chord somewhere. There was no response. Then I addressed a little speech to the four walls of the room, hoping Jeff would hear me. I pointed out that we had come a long, long way on his account and that we were entitled to some manifestation. A few words, a little laugh, a scream, a squeak, or just a simple scratch behind the paneling. I even invited him to throw something at me, but all to no purpose.
Typical man thinks that because he made the trip, he's entitled to Jeff.
Well, we've come a long way. Jeff, I'd appreciate just a little something.
We matched on Tinder. I took you out to dinner. So now you have to know.
Jeff,
okay?
I sent you a picture. Please respond. Price and Lambert would return the next evening to try once more to provoke Jeff, but he simply wouldn't reveal himself. So we got another account from Price. Quote, the Irvings were kindness personified and did everything for us, except produce Jeff. However, Mr. Irving personally...
Jeff is his own mongoose.
That's true. And, without the stress of him throwing shit at you and needles and whatnot, I'm assuming that they have more time to be kind to their guests.
Yeah.
So maybe Jeff's just being considerate.
Yeah.
However, Mr. Irving personally conducted us over the house and pointed out Jeff's haunts. We saw numerous peepholes, cracks through which Jeff threw things at doubting visitors, squint holes through which the mongoose watches the Irvings and interrupts the conversation with facetious and sometimes rude remarks.
This is straight up. It's like, it's the finale of Beetlejuice. You have the people over because you want to turn your house into a theme park.
Oh my God.
And the ghosts don't appreciate it. They're not going to come out when you want them to then.
I haven't seen that in so long, and that just put a memory of it back in my brain.
All-time favorite movie of mine.
So long.
I love Beetlejuice.
This is kind of a Beetlejuice situation.
It is a bit Beetlejuicy.
Beetlejuice, like,
Jeff is kind of a hybrid of he's the, I forget their actual name. He's the couple and he's Beetlejuice, though.
It's true.
When he's in a good mood, he'll tell you gossip from around town, and he'll dance with you and stuff. He'll be nice.
Yeah.
But then when you get the Beetlejuice side, Beetlejuice does it for the devilment for sure.
He gets nuts. We saw the runs behind the paneling by means of which Jeff can skip unseen from one room to another, upstairs or down. In Voyreur's room, we were shown Jeff's sanctum, really a boxed partition on top of which Jeff dances to the gramophone and bounces his favorite ball.
Hell yeah.
About midnight, we decided that Jeff had no intention of coming into the open and that we had better go home. We had spent many pleasant hours under the hospitable roof of the Irving farmstead, but we could not determine whether, in our role of investigators, we had taken part in a farce or a tragedy.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Could be a little bit of both. Maybe it's the farce and the tragedy, or the friends we made along the way.
maybe your sense of entitlement to Jeff's body is the tragedy.
That really, I mean, I think the message we got to take away from this is this man's interest in the mongoose's body. And just like feeling entitled to that. Absolutely. I think it gets weird, listeners. If you want to take a moral
this
home,
is the biggest takeaway.
This is the one. And we never have morals at the end of these shows. So this might be our first one.
Maybe you should start.
Fuck
a big question.
No more
big
questions. You should
start wrapping it up
What's
with a moral.
The moral of the episode? That's a really good idea. And then we can start like maybe doing some toyetic sort of advertisements for kids.
I think this is a great place to start with that because Jeff is very brandable.
That's true, and probably very toyetic.
Jeff the mongoose easily could have a Saturday morning cartoon.
Absolutely. Except for the part where he's singing Home on the range where the deer and the antelope are gay.
But Beetlejuice had a cartoon.
That's true. I love that cartoon.
He was a little raunchy.
He was a little raunchy. He said fuck. He said shit. He said all kinds of shit on that show.
He sucked dick.
He sucked dick and he fucked like crazy. I loved that show as a kid.
Who actually? I don't think I ever actually watched that as a kid.
I watched that more.
Who voiced Beetlejuice?
I don't remember. I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. I'll look into it now because
I'm always one of those hoes where when an iconic person like played a thing, it's hard for me to get over the hump of like accepting anyone
somebody
else doing it.
Yeah, like with Garfield.
Yeah. Definitely. Garfield is the first one that comes to mind.
Lorenzo Music is my Garfield. What can I say?
Bill Murray does his best.
Bill Murray tries for sure. He got a paycheck, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. But I loved that Beetlejuice cartoon so much as a kid that I've seen more of that show than the amount of hours I've spent watching Beetlejuice and the movie in my life. And
I should watch it. Everyone who I know who likes the movie loves the cartoon.
I mean,
have you listened to the Broadway musical?
I have seen clips of it.
Okay,
and it seems pretty delightful.
I'm curious about it because it's another. Okay, I don't know if I'm on record on this podcast. I'm definitely on record somewhere that the guy who in the original Broadway for Beetlejuice plays Beetlejuice. He is my mortal enemy. Because he also plays the Jack Black part in School of Rock.
Oh boy!
So he has done two iconic roles that were played by people who are near and dear to my heart. Yeah. That also the running joke with my family was that I should be the one doing these things.
Oh,
you're telling me this guy gets to be Jack Black on Broadway? I was born to play the Jack Black part on Broadway. I don't even know his name.
Can I get a little Jules Jack Blackism quick on mic? Or...
I do a lot of visual Jack Blackism, so audio is hard.
I can picture what those might look like.
There was literally have you seen School of Rock?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a part where one of the first days when he's being a substitute teacher, he goes, when the bell rings, he immediately like runs out, but he goes, "I'll catch you cats on the flip-flop later," and he backs out of the door. I used to do that at the end of the school day.
Wonderful.
Like little 6th grade Julia used to do that full, "I'll catch you on the flip-flop later," like to my teachers on my way out of school.
What you're saying is these plays that were poorly cast.
Yeah, Jack Black, like I modeled my whole shit after Jack Black. So if anybody should get to play a Jack Black part on Broadway,
it should be Jules.
It should be me.
Somebody.
Even though when School of Rock started, I probably was like 15 or something. That was a while ago.
Who's counting? In 1936. Jeff. So, according to the Irving family, as soon as Price and Lambert left, Jeff returned in full force. He, of course, refused to appear before the investigators, labeling them doubters. He did, however, agree to make a few paw and teeth prints in plaster, which were sent to be analyzed by Price, who then, sent it off to, actual scientists and stuff. And so, after getting the hair and prints analyzed, it was determined the hair was likely a dog's hair, which there was a family dog.
As soon as you said hair, I almost literally said. So Voira cut some hair off the dog.
Yeah, they had some sort of shepherd.
Yeah.
So
how weird
dog
that
hair,
there would be animal hair around a farmhouse.
Right. It's dog hair, and then the prints are matched no known animal, and they're different sizes, and they literally look like somebody's fingers stamp. So in 1936,
Jeff is a unique mongoose.
That's
he has
true.
dog hair.
Maybe he can shapeshift to the point where it looks like a human pawing at the plaster.
This is Jeff fucking with you. This is classic Jeff doing it for the devilment.
So, in 1936, Price and Lambert would work together to publish the book The Haunting of Cashin's Gap, a modern miracle investigated.
Cashin's Gap. That's what I was trying to think of earlier. Because that also sounds horribly like a terrible euphemism.
It does sound kind of bad. So in this book, they proclaim the tale of Jeff the Talking Mongoose to be a complete hoax. It wasn't long after the publication of this book that the Irving family left their farmstead, selling the property to a man named Graham. In 1947, Graham would claim to have trapped and killed a, quote, strange-looking animal that seemed to be neither ferret, stoat, nor weasel.
There you go.
Eventually, Graham left the property as well, and the household where Jeff stalked the halls was demolished.
Okay, so Graham fucking murdered Jeff.
Well...
Is that what I'm to believe? Is that the end of this story?
No, not quite. Almost. In 1970, Fate magazine got a hold of Voira to talk to her about the story of Jeff. Okay. Her parents, I think, are both dead at this point. And it's interesting because Voira had become the prime suspect in the hoaxing of Jeff the Mongoose. Price and Lambert, in their investigations, developed a theory. They believed Voira was exploiting the hollowed-out walls of the farmstead, which, when spoken or yelled into, could cause one's voice to emit through the entire place. And people had shown up, I didn't get too deep into it, but people had come to the farmstead and witnessed, quote unquote, witnessed Jeff, and he would speak to them through the walls.
Yeah.
So there were believers who were like, oh, this mongoose is speaking to me through the walls. And then also Voira, I can't remember if it was in this interview specifically, but when Graham was like, I killed Jeff, she was like, that's not Jeff. No way. He doesn't look anything like him.
And Voira would know.
And Voira would be the one who would know. Regardless, Voira would, like I said, stick to her story, never relenting on the story's descriptions and events. Among the accounts of Jeff, it was said he was a spirit in the body of a mongoose, or perhaps a demon in the form of a mongoose. Jeff himself was said to have told the family that he was a ghost of the fifth dimension. He's
a earthbound spirit, a ghost of the fifth dimension. I feel like it is classic demon shit to come in the form of a weird.
Oh, like a weird animal, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people say.
That's
poltergeist,
classic
demon.
Lucifer.
Absolutely.
Behavior.
So maybe this was Satan himself. He did do it for the devilment.
Could have been.
So. Voira asserted for the rest of her life that Jeff was real, terrifying, saying this in her interview. Quote, "It was not a hoax and I wish it had never happened. If my mother and I had had our way, we never would have told anybody about it. But Father was sort of wrapped up in it. It was such a wonderful phenomenon that he just had to tell people about it." Voira, the last bastion of Jeff trutherism, would pass away in 2005.
Wow. I feel like if this is yet again, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of like as a young person, this happens, whether it's real or not, whether I made it up. There's no way I would ever admit that I made it up. Because why would I? What are the consequences going to be?
For sure.
Like what? Like not that I'm worried about consequences coming down on me, but like, what does it change? Wouldn't it be more fun to preserve Jeff the Mongoose?
You believe in it so hard it becomes real.
Yeah.
To you.
There's no way I would ever.
And to other people.
Yeah.
Some people. I mean, I'm sure there are people that you can find out there who have read this story and been like, I bet that was real.
Yeah, for sure. So. And it's more fun to believe in Jeff the Mongoose. It's not like he's going to come and shoot me in the head.
Well, you let me know if you start hearing a gurgling noise.
Isn't it more safe, though, that I'm saying I believe in him?
That's true.
Then he won't shoot me in
That's
the
true.
head.
I mean, we're believers, and that's the thing.
I'm not going to risk it with Jeff and say I don't believe him, because that's when,
in fact,
when he comes for
I would go so far as to say, Jeff, at my apartment, I have a little bag of donuts.
Just for you. They've got your name on it.
If you show up, hey, look, we can share a bag of donuts. How's that sound, Jeff?
I'll make him some sausages.
Okay. I was going to say it's big question time.
Yeah.
And it is.
But we already did the moral.
And we already did the moral. And I was going to say, I realized it as I said it. My question is, what are the 3 foods that you would share with Jeff the Mongoose? And I like didn't even think about it, and I was like, all right, that was my big question.
And then you said the donuts.
So donuts is one of mine.
Donuts is a really good answer. I literally, as you said donuts, I was going through in my mind trying to picture, and I started thinking to myself, like Christmas, you leave out milk and cookies,
right?
Like,
oh, what does Jeff get?
What do you leave out for Jeff? And the thing I immediately pictured was a little can of Vienna sausages. So that's my first number one. In the can, like just open the can up, drain it for him,
right,
and just leave a little can of Vienna sausages. I'm picturing his little hands. I want to make it easy for him.
Absolutely.
So a little can of Vienna sausages.
Okay.
And then those gumdrops.
Ooh.
Little gumdrops with the sugar coating. And you said 3?
Yeah.
Maybe a beverage. Maybe a beverage for Jeff. What would Jeff like to drink? I mean, we said apple cider.
Apple cider.
Apple cider.
Apple cider's good.
Apple cider, gumdrops. This is a very whimsical little meal.
This is a dumpster meal.
Jeff is a dumpster mongoose.
Like he's my
little trash boy.
Vienna, like a can of Vienna sausages in the dumpster. You find some gumdrops, and a little present. There was a little tin of.
How about just like a Truly cider?
There you go.
Yeah, like.
Sorry, something just fell out the window, and I'm wondering if Jeff is up to shit.
Sometimes
a whole bunch of shit just fell.
There have been a couple times they were renovating upstairs that stuff went by the window.
No, I'm keeping it in.
I know, I was going to say, I'll leave a mark for you, but I think you should leave it in. I was about to tell you should leave it in.
I think it's Jeff up to his tricks.
He probably is.
He might be moving
Jeff,
moving in above.
we believe in you. We're literally meal planning for you now.
Jeff, come watch movies. We got popcorn and shit.
I could get Jeff into wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff would love wrestling.
Jeff, let's show him some of our favorite matches.
Oh my
God.
God.
When Jeff comes over tonight, we'll get him into wrestling.
Jeff is my dream man.
So I'm sticking by my assertion that there will be donuts.
I think donuts is great. Are they powdered?
No, they're the
chocolate
ones,
kind. The
chocolate donuts.
Okay.
And let's give them a well-rounded breakfast. So we're gonna have a plate of wet scrambled eggs. Wet scrambled eggs. And some apple slices.
A well-rounded meal.
Well-rounded breakfast, and those eggs have got to be wet.
Yeah, they have to be wet.
You serve Jeff dry eggs, and you're gonna get to doubter status real quick.
I feel like specifying wet though makes them sound underdone. I like a wet egg.
No, you got to get a wet egg.
I do keep my scrambled eggs wet.
I get mine wet and fluffy.
It's a terrible descriptor.
That's true. It's an awful word, and that's why I employ it.
It's an awful word, and I'm an awful man, and so I needed to use it.
No, I like some creamy, fluffy eggs. You got to keep them wet. And I've perfected that over quarantine. The last year, I just went real nuts on eggs.
Yeah.
So
a nice
Jeff's
wet
gonna
egg.
Get a nice wet egg. So. Oh, Jules, I have to handle the business all by myself. Oh my God, can I remember all of it?
I know, good luck. I don't know which one you guys do. I could guess. We're on Facebook.
You can follow us on facebook.com/itgetsweirdpodcast. You can follow us on Twitter @IGWpodcast. You can find our podcast where all podcasts are sold. That's Spotify, Stitcher. Look us up. We're there. It Gets Weird Podcast. You will find us. And then, of course, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. This week, Jules will be helping me eat the emails. Jules, don't know if you've heard this canon, but we eat the emails here at It Gets Weird.
Oh.
I don't have any idea. My brain was probably like marginally less wrinkled and more wet than usual, and I just was like, yeah, we eat them, and I thought that was like a funny bit.
As soon as you said eating the emails, I pictured like, you know those like stop motion videos where it'll be like Legos and the person is
that's what we're doing.
Up and like I pictured like an email.
Yes.
But that it would be wet scrambled eggs.
Yeah, but in the form of an email.
The email gets like, it's like an omelet.
Right. Exactly. That's what you nailed it. So you kind of get where this is going. So we eat the emails when they send them to us, and we digest them, and
this is why I'm the perfect guest host, because I immediately key into what eating an email means.
Thank you, Jules. So Jules will be eating the emails with me this week.
I look forward to it.
And we love getting emails from all y'all. If you have any fun Jeff the Mongoose stories, hit us up.
Hey, how about submit some Jeff the Mongoose fan art?
We got fan art a couple times in the past. It's been a couple years now. I would love to see fan art again. That would be amazing.
I would love to see some people.
It's like a big ask, but
do some Jeff the Mongoose as Beetlejuice. Jeff the Mongoose as the rat from Fantastic Mr. Fox. I gave you so much fodder to work with.
It's actually insane.
Go watch Victor Victoria and draw Jeff the Mongoose as one of those characters.
If we got fan art of this stuff, I would actually lose my mind. Yeah. So please, if that,
I'll make it. My profile picture on Twitter has been the same for like 4 years. I will change my profile picture on Twitter.
That's Hey, I might change mine too, and I've had that one for a long time as well. So hey, you
submit
send me some Jeff the Mongoose fan art. We're in.
Tag the It Gets Weird Twitter, and we will see it.
Also, patreon.com/itgetsweird. If you like our show, you can find a whole lot more of it at the $2 tier and the $5 tier. $5 tier, you're going to get bonus content every week. $2 tier, you're basically getting bonus content every other week. We have a $1 tier if you just want to kick us a buck and say, hey, I like your show, thanks for doing what you do, but you won't get anything out of it. But whether or not you donate at the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our secret Discord, which is bumping, people talking about cryptids, about Bigfoot and Mothman kissing, things like that. And you also get access to our episodes 2 days early, so you get them Friday instead of Sunday on your own special little secret feed. What else do we do on that? That's it.
It's a lot of bonus
It's a lot of we have so many episodes on there now. We've been doing the Patreon for I don't know how long exactly. Maybe almost 2 years. So there's probably a lot of episodes on there, lots of content to get it through, and it's just growing every week. So check it out. Donate to us if you can. If you can't, we totally understand. All I ask in that case is that you tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell anybody that you might know in Congress about us, because it's very important that we get us, get Congress listening to It Gets Weird. So they know.
I am now a podcast host. Me and Nile host another show about wrestling, and it's really hard for me at the end to not say tell your congressman. Every single time it pops into my head when we're doing business at the end, and I go, nope.
Maybe
that's Kyle's brand. I have to let Kyle say tell your congressman.
I appreciate that, but I wouldn't be upset if you wanted your
I do want people to tell their congressman about Outside Dive. So I forgot the name of my own podcast for a second there.
Listen, tell anybody you might know in Congress, anybody at all.
Go out, just go out your front door right now and yell it as loud as you can.
Please. And I don't care where you live either.
Bang some pots and pans.
Get out there and just make a real fucking racket.
This is if you can't tip $1, do like they were doing in New York for the healthcare workers.
You go.
Every night at 7 p.m. I want you to go outside and bang a pot and pan and yell. It gets weird.
Please do that. Kind of stolen valor, but we'll take it.
Yeah.
So this has been It Gets Weird. Thank you all for listening. Jules, thank you for joining me on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. And I'm sure we'll get you back on a guest with all three of us hanging out again sometime soon. So thanks again for listening, everybody. I'm Kyle signing out.
I'm Jules. Peace. That's what Nile does, right?